Hey guys, tonight we're heading way back to the flickering lamplight of ancient Athens, where marble temples rise out of the mist and sandals scuff along dusty stone. The air is thick with incense, and just below the surface of everyday city clamor, you can almost hear it, the rustle of divine egos. This isn't just another sleepy myth, it's the tale of two sea civilization, one city, and a very dramatic gardening competition. And spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't survive 5 minutes in this world. Between the lack of plumbing, the goat sacrifices, the sheer number of sharp bronze objects lying around, modern conveniences are just a dream in a distant century. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love knowing where and when in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're walking through the agora, the public heart, of Athens, just after twilight. The warm stone still breathes out heat from the day, and you can smell olives and charcoal drifting from open-air cook fires. There's something ancient in the air, not just old, but holy. It's the kind of sacred weight that makes the hairs rise on the back of your neck. This city, so clever and stubborn and sun-bleached, didn't always belong to Athena. In fact, it very nearly belonged to someone else, Poseidon, shaker of the earth, and owner of perhaps the worst temper on Mount Olympus. But tonight, you're before the story, walking the streets before they're paved with myths, before philosophers, before dramas, before democracy and debates. The temples are still young. The priests hum hymns that will one day be forgotten. A boy chases a hoop through the dusk, aware that he's racing across ground that once trembled with divine rivalry. Athens, yet to be called Athens, was once just a promising stretch of Attica, hills with olives, a port within reach. A population in need of protection. The people had been growing, fishing, trading a little. Their village was becoming a polis, and that meant big decisions. Namely, who to worship, who would be their patron god. It's not just in name, but in power, because patronage came with perks, blessings, defenses, seasonal weather that didn't turn your barley fields into swamp. The god, of course, noticed, and two of them, both proud, both powerful, decided they wanted in. You can picture it, a sea breeze rising as Poseidon, just all dripping beard and seething muscles, appears in a surge of brine outside the city's edge. Meanwhile, from the hills, a quiet whisper of wind stirs dust into spirals as Athena, armored and radiant, descends in measured steps, her eyes already calculating. People fall to their knees, priests stammer. The birds stop chirping, and then it begins, the posturing. Poseidon flexes. Quite literally, his trident glints. He lets it clatter once, dramatically, against the stone. And thunder echoes just in case anyone wasn't paying attention. Athena doesn't flinch. She lifts a finger instead, points toward a sapling struggling. In a clay jar, it's not much. But there's something unsettling in her calm. Like she knows something. Poseidon, Dost. This is no small quarrel, mind you. Patronage over a city means everything. It means temples, sacrifices, statues, and your name carved into the very identity of a people. The divine version of winning an election, except the debates might include actual lightning bolts. Historians still argue whether the myth reflects a real cultic transition from an older sea to a newer sea civilization. Some suspect Poseidon was once more dominant in early coastal Greece, till agricultural shifts and olive-based economies elevated Athena's appeal. Then again, the ancient Greeks weren't keeping spreadsheets. You pass a woman in a blue himation, her basket full of herbs. She glances at the horizon, where dark clouds now loom, as if Poseidon's frustration is already seeding the storm. She hurries home, unaware that history is about to pivot on the hinge of a contest. And what's the challenge? Exactly. Simple. Each god will offer a gift to the people of this young city, a divine present, something useful, beautiful, powerful, or ideally, all three. The people will choose. Whichever god they select becomes their patron forever. Poseidon smiles. He knows flash cells, He's already rolling thunder in the distance and forming a plan. Something dramatic, something wet, Athena. She's quiet, pensive, maybe even a little smug. As night thickens, torches flicker along the walls. The Acropolis rises behind you, its summit bare but potent, like a stage waiting for its first tragedy. In a few hours, this ridge will become the site of a showdown. Olive trees sway below, their leaves silver in the moonlight. The god will make their offers. The people will vote. And the world, your world, will feel the ripples for thousands of years. But for now, the city sleeps, and above, in the realm of stars and squabbles, Athena and Poseidon prepare for a contest that's equal parts divine PR stunt and celestial referendum. You drift closer to the heart of the story, lulled by the rustle of olive leaves and the whisper of waves just beyond. The shore tomorrow, the gifts will arrive. Morning comes with a slow burn. The sun spills over the hills in soft gold, brushing the rooftops of the rising city. Chickens cluck, merchants unpack amphory. But no one's really paying attention to trade today, not when two gods are about. To square off on sacred ground, you climb the path toward the Acropolis, heart ticking with anticipation. Others join you, farmers in linen, philosophers still mumbling through last night's debates, and a few wide-eyed children dragging reluctant goats. It feels like a festival, but quieter, more reverent. You're not just watching a contest, you're witnessing the moment your city's fate will be sealed. And there they are, waiting. Poseidon stands with his feet apart like he owns the sky. His trident, taller than any man, leans against his shoulder. His hair glistens like kelp in moonlight, and wherever he walks, the ground stays damp, the scent of seaweed following him like perfume. A dolphin circles near the cliffside below, clicking X plek. Athena, in contrast, is still as a marble column. Her eyes are sharp, her helmet gleaming but unadorned. She doesn't speak, doesn't posture. The owl perched on her arm blinks. Slowly, disinterested in the pageantry, it's Poseidon who moves first. He strides to the center of the Acropolis and raises his trident high. The wind picks up, snapping cloaks and tossing hair. With a cry that echoes from hill to harbor, he slams it into the stone. There's a crack like a thunderclap, and suddenly dash water. It bursts from the rock in a shimmering spray, arcs into the air, and falls into a pool that hadn't existed a moment ago. The crowd gasps. Even the goats look impressed. Salt water from the earth itself, a divine spring. Poseidon's voice booms like distant surf. Asterisk, behold, the gift of the sea endless, powerful, eternal. Asterisk, you approach it cautiously. The pool is beautiful clear, dancing with reflected light, surrounded by mist. But as you dip your fingers in, a grimace forms. It's salty, undrinkable, useful for brining fish, maybe, but not exactly revolutionary. Still, it's dramatic. And Poseidon beams like he's just dropped the mic. The priests murmur among themselves. The crowd buzzes. Some are clearly impressed. Others tilt their heads. There's reverence, but also hesitation. Athena steps forward silent. She doesn't carry a weapon. She doesn't summon lightning or raise her arms to the sky. Instead, she kneels, of all things, and presses her fingertips into the dry soil near the broken rock. The silence stretches thin. A few onlookers exchange confused glances, and then it happens. A single sprout curls upward from the dust. Slender, green, defiant. It stretches and twists as if in slow motion, thickening, branching, growing taller before your eyes. Its bark roughens. Leaves unfurl grayish-green on one side, silver on the other, and at the ends of each twig, fruit, olives gleaming in the sun. You can hear it too, the soft rustle of leaves, the quiet heartbeat of something alive, a gift not of spectacle, but of subtlety, not water, but sustenance. Athena stands again, hands folded. Her voice is calm. Asterisk, this tree will feed your children. Oil for cooking. Light medicine. Wood to build. Fruit to trade. This is the gift of civilization. Of peace, asterisk, the crowd is dead silent. Then someone kneels. Then another. You do too, because it's not just a tree. It's a future. It's a future it's easy in the modern world to overlook an olive. Tree. Just another plant. But here, it's revolutionary. It survives droughts. It yields oil that burns clean, preserves food, soothes wounds. It requires patience, planning, long-term care qualities that shape not just diets, but cultures. Mainstream. Historians note that the olive economy helped drive the rise of city-states like Athens. Olive oil was so precious it was stored in painted pots and awarded as prizes in the Panathenaic Games. Fringe scholars, meanwhile, like to argue that the myth of the olive tree was political propaganda, subtle dig at Poseidon's unpredictability and tempestuous rule. Who wants a saltwater god when you've got salad dressing? Athena doesn't gloat. She doesn't need to. And Poseidon? He scowls. His beard bristles. The waves below crash a little louder. You swear you see a fish leap out of the water just to get away from the tension. No vote is taken today. That will come later. But the mood has shifted. Poseidon's offering may be flashy, but Athena's is ... permanent. There's a strange hush. As the gods withdraw, melting back into mist and sky, the people file back down the hill, whispering to one another. Someone already has a stone blade out, carefully harvesting a single olive to show their grandmother. A boy rubs a leaf between his fingers. A potter sketches the tree into wet clay. The gods have made their case, but the people haven't. Decided yet? As you return to the city, the salt spring gurgles quietly behind you, trying very hard to be useful. And at the top of the hill, the olive. Tree sways gently in the breeze, as if it's been there forever. You wake to bells ringing softly in the lower city bronze against morning light, gentle and regular. It's the sound of decision day. The contest between Poseidon and Athena is over, at least the divine portion. It's up to the mortals. Citizens of the young city to vote. Not with ballots or raised hands, but with a ritual. With incense, whispers, and sacred stones placed before shrines, you stretch. Dust from sleep clinging to your tunic, and glance up at the Acropolis. The olive tree is still there, sharp against the horizon, already taking root in imagination as well as soil. But Poseidon's spring still flows, too. And it gleams with a kind of haunted defiance. You join the slow-moving crowd, all eyes turned. Uphill, a flock of birds explodes from a fig tree overhead, startled perhaps by the silence. 'Cause today, for once Athens is gone quiet. There's a faint scent of myrrh in the air as you near the temple grounds. High-ranking priests and priestesses, some in robes, bleached bone-white. Others in deep sea blue await the people's arrival, which has a polished amphora at their feet. One marked with Athena's owl, the other with Poseidon's trident. You hesitate. This is the moment, after all, not just a mythic gesture. Your city's fate might actually hang on what happens next, or at least that's what the elders claim. Of course, historians still argue whether this story ever really involved a popular vote. Some say it reflects early democratic ideals projected backward into legend. Athens rewriting its own divine origin with a wink and a chisel. Others argue the myth was always about compromise. Poseidon might have lost the contest, but he still received shrines in the city. Still, you have a stone in your hand. The amphora waits. You approach Athena's jar. You drop the stone in with a faint clink, and you're not alone. A ripple of quiet sound follows hundreds of small, decisive clinks. Even those loyal to Poseidon seem to pause. Some mutter prayers for good fishing. One older man stands for a full 5 minutes, stone hovering indecisively, before muttering, "Well, you can't eat salt." And dropping his in Athena's jar, by noon, it's done. The priests count the stones. Though it's more ceremonial than competitive now, the outcome is obvious. Athena has won, but even in victory, there's a strange tension, because Poseidon is not known for losing gracefully. The sky darkens slightly, although there's no cloud in sight. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnies curious echo of Poseidon's other gift to humanity, less well known than the salt spring. According to some myths, he also created the first horse, born of sea foam and desire. Why he didn't lead with that instead of a briny puddle is anyone's guess. Chill wind picks up as the final stone drops, and then it happens. A low tremor beneath your feet, barely noticeable. Soft rumble that rolls through the stones like a sigh. Some say it was an aftershock of divine rage. Others claim Poseidon simply kicked the seabed in frustration. But a crack appears in the base of the hill, as if the earth itself disapproves. It stops almost as soon as it begins. No buildings fall, no statues tip, but the message is clear. Poseidon is not amused. Still, Athena stands tall in the minds of the people now. Already ideas are forming. Walls, schools, a place where knowledge, not brute force, will define greatness. You linger near the tree again. A small girl is plucking leaves, threading them into a wreath. Her mother stops her gently and whispers, "Not today. Sacred now." Funny how quickly myth becomes law. You spend the rest of the day weaving through early celebrations. Potter offers olive oil lamps for half price. A poet recites verses where Athena defeats Poseidon in a rap battle, okay? It's hexameter. But close enough? Someone even starts designing the city's first coin, with an owl on one side and the olive tree on the other. Talk about branding. The Acropolis is already being renamed Athena's Hill. Plans for a temple start swirling before sunset. Even a statue is promised, though no one can agree on whether it should show Athena in full armor or smiling peacefully. Spoiler, it'll be both. It's always both. By nightfall, the gods have withdrawn again. Poseidon to the sea, grumbling into his storms. Athena to the sky, her owl circling once overhead before vanishing into the stars. You lie down beneath the olive tree, yes, the olive tree. Its leaves rustle above you. The bark feels smoother than it should for something planted yesterday, and you wonder, did she actually grow it in a moment? Or has it always been here? Is this a myth, a memory, or both? Fringe scholars like to say. The whole story is allegory civilization rising over chaos, wisdom triumphing over instinct. The olive versus the ocean. But that doesn't explain why, 2,000 years later, that tree is still sacred, still growing, still rooted in the stone. Of Athens, you close your eyes, letting that rustling lull you into a daze. The gods have spoken, and your city has listened. The days after the contest unfold like a slow, unraveling tapestry. The city, still young, begins to reshape itself around its chosen patron. You, like everyone else, begin to speak of Athens as if it has always borne her name. It hasn't. But that's already fading from memory. You spend your mornings wandering through sunlit lanes. The olive tree always visible at the city's crown like a green flame. It's become a sort of compass point, anchoring everyone's gaze. Even merchants selling figs and salted fish glance toward it before calling out prices, like asking permission. Temples begin to rise, or at least foundations are cleared. Laborers chip stone while architects draw lines in the dust with reeds. Children sneak onto the building site, pretending to be gods, arguing in shrill voices over who gets the best offerings. One boy wears a fish on his head and demands someone build a dolphin chariot, and through it all, stories begin to spread. First, they're whispered jokes. Don't let Poseidon hear you curse the sea heel, flood your wine cellar again. But soon, they become half-believed legends. Someone claims they saw Athena walk the agora at dusk. Another swears Poseidon sank a trading ship just for flying an owl pennant. The boundary between history and myth softens like wax melting under a midday sun, and you You've been drawn into something else entirely. You've been invited to help tend to sacred olive. It's not a glamorous job. The tree doesn't need much. But the priests insist on constant presence, constant reverence. You water it sparingly, brush insects from its leaves, and hum softly when no one's around. Sometimes you think it hums back. Olive lore, it turns. Out. Runs deep. Mainstream historical records describe the olive as one of the earliest domesticated trees in the Mediterranean. Cultivated since the Bronze Age, passed hand to hand across empires. But here, now, it feels alive in a different way. More than botany. It's almost sentient. one priest explains. She gave us civilization. In return, we guard the symbol of it.
You
don't know if the tree actually needs protection, but it feels right. The city around you grows louder and livelier. The agora expands with new stalls, new faces. Traders from Crete arrive with bright fabrics. A weather-beaten sailor from Phoenicia offers glass beads the color of stormwater. People come not just to barter, but to marvel to see the city blessed by Athena herself. Athens begins to develop a peculiar kind of pride. Quiet, but sturdy. Not boastful, but not afraid to claim itself as different. Not as large as other cities, not as old, but chosen. Clever. And that cleverness is starting to show. One evening, you visit a symposium, a casual one, under hanging lanterns and trellises of ivy. A philosopher leans too far back in his chair and falls into a bush. No one helps him up. Instead, someone quotes a proverb and starts debating gravity. There's talk of civic order, of rules, of fairness. One man insists that olive oil should be free to all citizens. Another counters that without regulation, the tree will be stripped bare in a week. They nearly come to blows over fruit rations. You sip watered wine and smile. Into the night, historians still argue whether this flowering of thought and policy was truly divine inspiration or just the right blend of geography, trade, and stubbornness. Fringe scholars claim Athena's gift was actually a metaphor for a major agricultural breakthrough. The moment olives were mastered, the city could feed itself, export wealth, and invest in leisure, art, politics. The moment culture truly began. But tonight it doesn't feel metaphorical. Tonight as you walk home, a warm wind moves through the olive leaves like a lullaby. The moon casts their shadows in silvery lace across the path. Somewhere nearby, a child asks her father if Athena eats olives or just grows them. The father pauses. Both, he says. Probably both. You pass the salt spring Poseidon's. Offering it still flows, cool and clear, but useless. And yet, oddly beautiful under the moonlight. There's even talk of building a small shrine around it.
right.
Not as a mockery, but as acknowledgement. The gods, after all, don't go away. They linger in dreams, in rituals. In the stories that settle like dust into the corners of a city's identity, you stop by the tree one last time before sleep. A single olive falls as you approach. You pick it up, turn it over in your palm, smooth, cool, alive. And for a moment, you swear you hear footsteps behind you. But when you turn, there's no one, only the wind and the whisper of feathers. Maybe Athena walks here still. You wake to the sound of distant hammering stone on stone, echoing across the hills. Athens, now fully under Athena's wing, has found its purpose. And its purpose, at least for now, is building. You head uphill, past rows of new homes with olive branch motifs carved into their lintels. The streets smell of damp limestone, fresh fig bread, and an undercurrent of something sharp ambition, maybe. On the Acropolis, the sacred tree stands surrounded by scaffolding. Not for the tree itself, of course. That remains untouched, sacred. Ground. But around it, the foundations of the first shrine to Athena take shape. Architects and stonemasons argue in clipped tones over the curvature of columns. One insists on the Doric style clean, strong, austere. Another waves his arms about Ionic scrolls, declaring them the language of wisdom. Neither agrees, but the walls go up anyway. You lend a hand where you can. Mostly you carry water to the workers and sweep up powdered marble. But it feels important, like being a stitch in something larger, like helping weave a story that will outlast you. The temple isn't the only change. City planners, yes. That's now a thing, have begun laying out an urban grid, straight roads, public fountains. Even a theater, just a wooden stage for now, but with promises of poetry, comedy, and civic debate. You overhear one planner mutter, "We'll be the envy of Mycenae." His friend replies, "Let's aim higher, Delphi even." There's a buzz in the air. Athens isn't just building stone. It's building identity. You pause near the salt. Spring Poseidon's legacy. Few fish have somehow taken up residence, darting through brackish pools. Children throw crumbs and giggle. An old man scoffs, still cursed, then flicks a coin in anyway, maybe just in case. The city is learning balance. It's not always smooth. One night, a violent windstorm tears through the outskirts, toppling half-built structures. Some blame Poseidon. Others call it coincidence. A group of poets gather the next morning to declare it a dramatic metaphor for unchecked ambition. They're politely ignored. Still, it rattles people. A priest declares that Athena must be honored more publicly, so a festival is planned. First Panathenea. You help gather olive branches for the ceremonial garlands. You even get to tie one yourself around the new statue's base. Athena, carved in gleaming limestone, helmet slightly askew an accident. But it works. The festival begins with solemnity. Libations, chants, long prayers under the sun. But by evening, solemn gives way to celebration. There's dancing music from double-reeded alloy. Someone balances 3 amphorae on their head and recites a love poem. The crowd loses it. You sit beside a stranger who turns out to be a potter. He's made dozens of oil jars for the event each, decorated with scenes of Athena's victory. It's the trick, she whispers, is to draw her both fierce and smug. You ask her if she believes the myth. She shrugs. Doesn't matter. It moves people. It's the point. And it does. Even now, generations later, those scenes appear on surviving Amphiathena, spear raised, owl perched nearby, Poseidon's trident, cracking the earth in defeat. Scholars debate whether the original tale was propaganda, an olive-loving city rewriting divine history to suit itself. Fringe theorists even claim the contest never happened, that it was reverse-engineered from a symbolic tree and an inconvenient spring. But the people believe it. They live it, and belief, in a city like Athens, is as foundational as stone. You spend one afternoon with a young boy named Nikos, who asks you earnestly if olive trees can think. When you hesitate, he nods. I thought so. This one does. It watches. Later, he tries to feed it grapes. You can't help but smile. By now, the tree has woven itself into every part of the city's consciousness. Olive oil is traded, taxed, stored in elaborate jars. It flavors food, fuels lamps, softens leather, and serves as medicine. Even wrestling matches now include pre-bout oil massages. Nothing says glorious victory like glistening athletes. Slipping into each other like angry eels, the city flourishes. But you begin to notice shadows. Not of Poseidon, he's gone quiet. But of something more subtle. Ambition turning to arrogance. Debate edging toward division. The philosophers speak in circles. Artists argue over funding. One man claims his statue of Athena is too beautiful to share temple space with others. She told me so, he insists. He's asked, gently, to leave. You wonder if the gods are watching, and if so, whether they approve. That night, as you walk alone near the Acropolis, the sky cracks with heat lightning. No rain, just that sudden flickering silence after fire in the clouds. The olive tree sways, just slightly, and a single leaf falls into your palm. You keep it later. You'll press it between the pages of a scroll and forget it for years. When you find it again, it will be paper-thin and fragile, but still whole. Just like the city, just like the myth. The years roll by, and with them comes the quiet rhythm of a maturing city. Athens no longer feels like a scrappy upstart carved from limestone dreams and olive twigs. It walks with surer feet, now still a little smug, still draped in myth. But increasingly real, you begin to see her in layers. The Athena of legend still lives atop the Acropolis, carved in marble and crowned in sacred leaves. But another Athena more subtle moves through the streets. She's the guiding hand behind law codes and learning, behind careful city planning and wheel-oiled wrestling matches. Less lightning bolt, more ledger. Less armor, more wisdom scroll. You feel it most in the agora. The central square has become a hive of deliberate noise. Market stalls sell everything from smoked eel to tiny statues of Athena carved out of ivory. Quaint philosophers stroll between fishmongers and spice sellers, arms clasped behind their backs, frowning into the middle distance like they've misplaced the meaning of life. You buy a honey cake from an old woman who mutters that Poseidon's salt spring is still a bad luck for the joints. Then she smacks a lazy youth with her ladle and returns to stirring sesame seeds into syrup. You wonder if she is Athena, temporarily disguised, somewhere nearby. A boy tries to sell a pebble he claims is a fragment of the original trident. Crack, he's 10. You give him 2 coins anyway. And that's the thing Athens has become comfortable with its myth. It wears it not like armor, but like a familiar cloak, lightly, proudly with a smirk. But under that smirk, something shifts. 1 day, you're summoned to the olive tree. Not by priests or officials, but by a dream. You're standing in a hall of green shadows, the branches rustling like whispered arguments. A voice not loud, but absolute tells you to wake early. So you do. At dawn, you find others there. Few familiar faces, many not. A soldier, a baker, a widow, a child with ink-stained fingers, all standing in silence, watching the tree. Nothing extraordinary happens. No lightning. No booming voice. Just a gentle breeze, the scent of crushed time, and the steady sound of birds beginning their day. But something is different. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, like the moment before a speech, or the pause before a lover says your name. A priest finally breaks the silence. It's growing, he says. Everyone nods. If that explains everything. You look more. Closely, he's right. The tree is bigger. It's just slightly fuller, wiser. Some say Athena has blessed it again. Others whisper about a new golden age. Still others say the tree is a barometer, reacting to the health of the city. That when Athens thrives, it flourishes. When Athens falters, it will wither. Historians still argue over this phase of growth. Some suggest this was when the actual cult of Athena Polius, the city protector, crystallized into formal rituals, rites, and state policy. Others dismiss it as retrofitted lore, the product of poetic priests and political necessity. What a few. Fringe thinkers insist that the tree itself was replaced every generation, carefully, secretly, so no one would know. You've seen no evidence of this, but the idea lingers. It's uncomfortable as a stone in your sandal. There's another change you can't ignore. Poseidon is back. Not literally. Not with waves crashing up the Acropolis or dolphins jousting in the salt spring, but in influence. Naval ambitions rise. What? Shipbuilding yards expand. Young men whisper not of olive groves, but of triremes fast, deadly and sleek as hunting hounds. The sea once mocked as a salty mistake, now beckons like a siren, and not everyone likes it. One elder grumbles, "We chose land over sea, brains." Over brawn, another retorts, "Brains can build ships too." The debate crackles like firewood. You attend a small gathering of scholars, technically a wine night. But everyone brings scrolls. The topic, can a city devoted to Athena still serve the sea? Opinions split. One philosopher toasts divine duality, while another quietly accuses him of heresy. Someone drops a clay cup. It shatters. Everyone pauses. Then laughter. Still, you feel the tension deepening. Athens is trying to have it both ways. And maybe, just maybe, it's working. The tree continues to thrive. The salt spring, strangely, draws more pilgrims now than ever before. Not worshippers of Poseidon exactly, but citizens who feel the city needs balance. Some leave offerings, fish bones, tiny boats, blue pebbles. One woman places a single olive and a scallop shell side by side. It looks ... Right, the city grows louder, brighter, bolder, and beneath it all, the roots dig deeper. You sit beneath the tree one evening, journal in hand, watching the last light slant through its branches. A child runs past, shouting that Athena just helped him win a race. His father rolls his eyes and says, "Then thank her properly. Don't just yell at her backside." You smile. In a few years, the Acropolis will be a forest of marble columns. The Parthenon will rise. The philosophers will grow beards and egos. The navy will become legend. And Athens will strut across the world stage like a clever owl in a lion's den. But tonight, it's still yours. Still close. Still quiet. The olive. Tree rustles again. You don't look up. You just whisper, "Thank you." The city breathes now with a new rhythm ambition braided with pride, curiosity, with caution. You wake each day to sun-dappled stones and the sound of merchants calling out olives by the amphora, or figs, still warm from the orchard. But underneath this peaceful bustle, Athens hums with something deeper, an idea of itself. One morning, you find yourself drawn back to the tree knot, for ritual, not for festival, but for silence. The olive branches sway gently overhead, casting fractured shadows on the smooth stone below. There's something comforting about its stillness, like a parent watching a child outgrow their own stories. But the stories aren't done with you. Yet, the priests are preparing for a new rite, something grander, more theatrical. They call it the Great Panathenaea, an amplified version of the earlier festival. You hear whispers that this time there will be a grand procession, a brand new robe or peplus woven by the city's finest women, and athletic games modeled. After the Olympics, you're assigned to help with the robe knot to weave. Exactly, but to assist with dye preparation. Crushed saffron, wild madder root, the powder of sea snails. The work stains your hands and fills your nose with a fragrance. Halfway between Spice Market and Sea Breeze, the robe depicts Athena in battle, her defeating giants. Flanked by gods and mortals alike, as you help hang it to dry, it ripples in the breeze like something alive. You swear her spear winks at you. On the morning of the procession, the entire city gathers. You join the crowd, streaming toward the Acropolis, your feet crunching olive. Leaves laid out like a green carpet. Musicians lead the waypipes and lyres, drums and laughter. Behind them, youths carry olive branches dipped in gold, and then the sacred robe. Held aloft like a banner of unity, even the philosophers stop talking. You notice Poseidon spring along the route. Someone has dressed it up, draped it with seaweed, placed a few small amphorae at its edges. The symbolism isn't lost on you. Athena may be the city's heart, but Poseidon still simmers just beneath the skin. The robe reaches the temple, and the crowd hushes. A priestess steps forward and fastens it around the ancient. Wooden statue of Athena Peleus, the one said to have fallen from the heavens, though it looks suspiciously handmade. Doesn't matter. In this moment, it's holy. People cheer. Someone throws fig cakes. A toddler bites one and declares it too sacred to finish, then promptly finishes it anyway. The night becomes celebration. You dance with strangers, laugh too loudly, and share pomegranate wine with a potter who insists he's figured out how to paint in divine proportions. He draws a spiral in the dirt and explains how Athena's wisdom is hidden in geometry. You pretend to follow. Later, you stumble home through the olive grove, tipsy and drowsy. The air smells like roasted meat, crushed thyme, and warm earth. You fall asleep with grass in your hair and a satisfied sigh on your lips in the days that follow. Stories begin to circulate. Someone claims to have seen Athena during the festival, cloaked in smoke from the cooking pits, eyes glowing like coals. Another says they saw Poseidon's trident shimmer in the salt spring at dusk. Most people roll their eyes. A few nod slowly, as if remembering something too fragile to say aloud. Historians still debate the origins of the Great Panathenaea. Was it an organic evolution of older rites, or a political move to unify a fractious population under one divine brand? Some fringe theorists even argue that the peplus itself wasn't just symbolic, it was meant to literally protect the city. A metaphysical garment against misfortune. Whatever the truth, the ritual sticks. And something else begins to bloom. Art sculptors carve Athena in every imaginable pose, shield raised. Owl perched, laughing with mortals. Potters inscribe her onto vases. Poets write odes in her honor, comparing her eyes to lightning and her wisdom to the sea. You see, graffiti near the agora, Athena Rules Poseidon, drools. A child's work probably, but who knows? You start keeping a small journal, not of daily events, but of questions. Why did she choose the olive tree? What did Poseidon really feel when he lost? What happens to a city when its myth becomes law? Some nights you read your journal aloud to the tree. You never get answers. But the breeze always picks up around page 3. The city grows outward. New walls, new neighborhoods, new arguments. The navy becomes bolder, even cocky. Ships come and go, laden with grain, stone, spices, and stories. You meet a sailor who swears he saw an island where the trees bleed red sap and whisper names. You believe him. The olive oil industry flourishes. You help in an olive press once, slipping on slick stone floors as heavy weights turn green gold fruit into liquid wealth. The air is so rich with scent, it clings to your clothes for days. One worker explains that the best oil is reserved for sacrifices and champions. Only mortals get the second press, she says with a wink. You think about that for a long time. One evening, a philosopher stops you near the temple and asks, "Do you believe wisdom and war can share the same face?" You frown. He shrugs. "That's the face we worship." And he walks away, sandals kicking up dust. That night, you dream again of the tree. This time, it speaks not in words, but in symbols. Olive branches curl into labyrinths. Roots become rivers. The city rises like a flame and turns into a bird. You wake gasping, heart pounding. With a single phrase echoing in your mind, the contest never ends. You're not sure what it means, but you start writing again. The years fold over you like linen in a sun-warmed basket. Gently, with a quiet weight, Athens continues to strut and simmer, full of drama and divine footnotes. But you've become part of its furniture, familiar, maybe even wise, though? You'd never admit it out loud. You wake each morning to the sound of sandals on stone, the metallic clink of amphorae being stacked, and roosters who clearly believe they are the gods of their neighborhoods. Life here follows its rituals. Oil poured in thanks, bread broken with friends, a sly prayer muttered to both Athena and Poseidon, just in case. Still, something stirs. You notice it first in the agora, where whispers travel faster than merchant haggles. Someone says Sparta's getting bolder. Another claims the Delian League's tribute ships are getting heavier to heavy. Coins, mostly stamped with Athena's owl. Power is shifting, or concentrating. But tonight, you step away from politics. You're headed to the olive press again. Not to work, but to meet a friend Callista. A potter with the sharpest laugh in Attica and a habit of painting Athena with extra muscles. She insists strength is divine. Why worship a goddess who couldn't punch a hole through a mountain, she says, elbowing you. Tonight, she's invited you to a small gathering of artisans, painters, stonemasons, perfume makers. The air smells like beeswax, wet clay, and roasted garlic. Someone plays a flute. Someone else argues that Poseidon invented the spiral shell as a form of poetry. His sea snails were love letters, says one dreamy youth. His sea snails were snacks, grumbles an older man, biting into a fig. You sip wine, laugh too much, and sketch a little owl on a napkin. Someone claps. Someone says you should paint it on the side of a vase. You shrugged. Maybe as the night deepens, the conversation turns to the gods. Someone asks, "Do you think Athena regrets winning?" The question hangs in the air like smoke. No one answers. Right away. Eventually, Callista says she won a city that always needs saving, and that's the truth, isn't it? Achaeans is clever and shining, but it's also flawed, arrogant, argumentative, always two wrong comments away from civil war. You wonder if Poseidon, for all his storminess, would have brought more discipline. But then again, waves don't plant trees, and you've seen what happens when fire meets salt. Still, you feel Poseidon more now. In the harbor, where ships unload strange spices from the east, in the smell of fish guts along the docks, in the storms that roll in hard and fast, shaking. The olive branches like angry fingers. The priests don't talk about him, but sailors do. They leave offerings by the salt spring, again nothing grand. Just mussel shells, bits of rope, once even a tooth. You spot it one morning, tucked beside the old trident scar in the stone. No note, just a gap-toothed prayer. Historians still argue whether Poseidon's cult persisted underground or was simply absorbed into new civic rituals. Some say he never left. He just stopped knocking. Others suggest Athena tolerated his memory, letting him linger like a stubborn cousin at the dinner table. Fringe scholars whisper that the gods weren't rivals at all, but partners playing out a script mortals misunderstood. You don't know. But you start to feel it. A city is never ruled by one god alone. Even when Athens builds the Parthenon Grand, it's precise, glowing like a pearl on the Acropolis. It's not just about Athena. It's about projection, pride, legacy. And maybe a little, feared inside, the colossal statue of Athena Partheness resides a towering gold and ivory vision of victory and virtue. Her shield depicts the battle of the gods. Her spear gleams, and at her feet is a serpent. Not a sea serpent, but close enough. Poseidon's echo again. The people are awed. Some weep, others write poems. A boy kisses the statue's toe and says, "Thank you for olives." Later, the same boy steals a honey cake and blames it on Hermes. Classic you. Climb the hill one evening, long after the crowds left. The moon casts pale light across the marble, making everything look like bone and breath. The city below flickers with torches and laughter. The salt spring glows faintly. You sit beside the olive tree and listen. The cicadas drone like sleepy prophets. You smell sage and smoke in the faint metallic scent of anticipation. Something's coming. Not war yet, but tension. A coiling of civic nerves. You hear arguments in the streets now about alliances, taxes, and which god should get which share of the next victory. The olive oil merchants form a council. The shipbuilders form a louder one. Athena's temple stands high. But Poseidon's domain grows louder every day. A young man stops you and asks, "Do you think the gods still walk among us?" You don't hesitate. "Yes," he grins. "Then why? Do we keep messing everything up?" You shrugged. "Maybe that's the point." He nods like he understands, but you're not sure he does. You're not sure you do. But the city hums with beauty and chaos. Marble and salt, olive and brine, Athena and Poseidon, still arguing not with lightning or waves, but with policy, poetry, and prayer. And beneath it all, the roots of the tree keep spreading. You don't know where they'll lead, but you keep walking. You wake before dawn, not to the sound of birds or merchants, but silence. A thick, velvety hush that seems to smother the world. Step outside, and the city glows faintly blue in the pre-sunlight. Even the olive trees look stiller than usual. As if listening for something, today marks the anniversary of the great contest the moment. Athena and Poseidon presented their gifts and changed the fate of a hilltop village forever. It's not an official holiday. There's no parade, no fig cake frenzy, no robe to drape. But those who remember still gather at the Acropolis before the sun rises. You join them, mostly elders. A few curious children clinging to their parents' robes, and artisans whose hands are more callous than skin. They stand silently around the olive tree. And as the first golden light spills over the horizon, someone hums. The melody is simple, for notes repeated like a heartbeat, but others join in. It's not a hymn exactly, more like a memory wrapped. In sound, and then, as if the city itself is inhaling, a soft breeze curls through the branches. The leaves rustle. A child whispers, she's listening. Later that day, you visit a nearby scroll seller who set out a fresh batch of illustrated myths. The drawings are laughably dramatic. Athena in a crown the size of a watermelon, Poseidon flexing like a bodybuilder, but you buy one anyway. The ink smells fresh. You're a sucker for overly expressive owls. You find yourself wandering through the city's quieter corners alleyways, where moss creeps between the stones. Courtyards where stray cats lounge like tiny sphinxes. At one point, you pass a boy pretending to be Poseidon, smacking a stick into the ground and yelling, "Behold, salt." His friend, the designated Athena, replies by pelting him with olives. The stick breaks. They both laugh. You do too. It reminds you of something a philosopher once said. Children understand the gods best. They haven't yet been talked out of magic. You pause at a small shrine tucked between two houses. It's ancient, barely more than a stone. Slab and a few burnt offerings, but someone's placed both an olive branch and a scallop shell on it. Athena and Poseidon, side by side. You smile. You remember when the two gods first arrived, all thunder and splendor, ready to win a city with. Gifts. You remember Athena's quiet calm and Poseidon's salty pride. But now, years later, you wonder if either of them truly understood what they were asking for. Athens is no prize. It's a responsibility. And U.S. You have become a custodian of that responsibility. Not in any grand way. You don't make policy. You don't sculpt marble, but you keep the stories. You remember the dreams. You visit the tree. One evening, you're invited to a symposium. You almost decline philosophers, and wine can be a dangerous mix, but the host promises olives from a grove supposedly descended from Athena's original tree. You're skeptical. You go anyway? The room is full of thinkers and drunks, often both. Someone is debating whether shadows are real or merely visual accidents. Someone else is reciting a poem about a dolphin in love with a statue. You end up sitting next to a woman who claims she's descended from a priestess of Poseidon. You raise an eyebrow. Really? She grins. Maybe, or maybe I just like sea. Salt more than olive oil. You talk long into the night. She tells you her dreams often involve water deep, bottomless, humming with ancient voices. You tell her yours are full of trees, roots or branches. She asks. Both. She clinks her cup against yours. Then we're probably related. The room eventually quiets, and someone asks the question everyone secretly came for. Do the gods still argue? You don't answer immediately. Instead, you look out the window at the dark sky, where the stars blink like the eyes of old gods still eavesdropping on mortal chatter. Finally, you say, of course they do. They argue through us. Historians still wrestle with what the olive tree really meant. Was it economic, ecological, or spiritual? Some suggest it symbolized trade and stability. Others argue it was a metaphor for knowledge, how it spreads slowly, grows deep roots, and endures drought. Fringe theories even claim the olive tree was never real, just a mythological placeholder for a political decision. Long lost to time, but you know it was real. You've touched its bark. You've watched its branches sway on windless nights. You've seen people weep beneath it, not from sorrow, but awe. A few days later, a storm rolls in. Not violent, just enough to rattle shutters and make the sea churn with dark froth. You wrap yourself in a woven shawl and climb the Acropolis, curious to see how the tree is weathering the weather. It stands unbothered, wet but unbothered. The salt spring next to it gurgles louder than usual, and you swear the bubbles form little concentric ripples like laughter. You stand between them, tree and spring, and realize the contest never ended. It just changed shape. It's in every debate over city planning, every tug of war, between war and wisdom, every olive grove. It's planted near a coastline. And maybe, just maybe, Athena and Poseidon aren't adversaries anymore. Maybe they're collaborators, locked in an eternal dance, pulling the city between them so it never falls too far in one direction. You touch the tree's bark. It's warm, you whisper. Thank you, though you're not sure which god you're addressing. A breeze answers, and you go home. The year shifts again, though you've long stopped counting. You measure time now by harvests, by the changing flavor of the air, by how many tourists get lost looking for the amphitheater and end up asking you for directions. Athens continues to glitter, grumble, and grow. New buildings rise, old myths bend, and yet the city's heart still beats between a tree and a spring. You've taken to strolling up the Acropolis at dusk. Your joints complain, but you've learned to ignore them mostly. On this particular evening, the hill is empty, save for a boy sketching the olive tree on a wax tablet. You stand behind him quietly. He's got the proportions all wrong, but there's charm in it. He draws Athena beside the tree, and Poseidon. Off to the side, arms crossed and sulking, you smile. Think he's still mad? The boy jumps, then shrugs. Maybe. My teacher says Poseidon wanted us to be sailors, not thinkers. You crouch beside him. We became both. He got his way too. He looks at you, squinting. So, they both won? Kind of, you say. That's the funny thing about arguments that last forever. You sit together in silence. The cicadas were. Somewhere below, a baker yells at a dog. The moon emerges over the horizon, soft and round like a peeled fig. The boy asks, do you believe they're still here? You hesitate. Then, they're here when you remember them. That's how gods work. He nods, as if that makes perfect sense. In truth, you've had dreams lately, Odd. Vivid things where you're neither you nor anyone else. In one, you are the olive tree. You feel time ripple through your bark, generations brushing past your roots like whispers. In another, you're Poseidon's trident, half buried in seabed sand, still humming with fury. You try to ignore them, but they cling. Back in the waking world, there's a new playmaking waves in the agora. It's a cometive. Of course it is poking fun at both Athena and Poseidon, casting them as bickering siblings trying to co-manage a crumbling estate. Athena counts olive pits to track harvest yields. Poseidon floods the basement out of spite. The crowd loves it. You go with Callista, who snorts wine through her nose during a scene where Athena tries to fix a roof while Poseidon replaces the tiles with fish. I would so watch a sitcom of this, she whispers. You nudge her. You are watching it. Even the priests attend, though none officially bless the performance. One of them leaves an amphora of oil Baxtajan, olive branch. It's quite literally. And when the final act ends with both gods exhausted, agreeing to just let the humans sort it out, the applause is thunderous. Not for the resolution, but the recognition. Everyone understands that feeling. The world, after all, is mostly human nonsense with divine echoes. Historians still debate the role of theater in preserving mythology. Some believe comedy undermined the gods' dignity. Others argue it kept them alive, made them reachable. Fringe theorists even claim that laughter feeds the divine, that each joke told in a god's name strengthens their thread in the human. Tapestry, you lean toward the latter. After all, you've laughed more with Athena than prayed. On your way home, you stop by the tree. There are new offerings: honeycomb, a broken lyre string, a tiny clay dolphin. Someone has tied a ribbon between the tree and the salt, spring red, faintly glowing in the moonlight. You leave a fig, it's all you have on hand. Later that night, thunder rumbles in the distance. Not overhead, but near enough to rattle your windows. You open them wide and let the cool air in. The scent of wet leaves, distant sea foam, something sharp like lightning just before it arrives. You don't sleep. Instead, you sit by your doorway with a cup of warm wine and listen. To the storm, tease the hills. You half expect to hear hoofbeats or wing beats, or waves pounding up the marble stairs of the Acropolis. You don't, but you do hear the wind say something that might be your name. The next morning, Athens looks scrubbed, washed clean. The streets glisten, the tree glistens. Even the old trident scar by the salt spring looks somehow deeper. You pass a group of children drawing in the dust with sticks. One of them says if Poseidon and Athena had to share, who would pick first? Another replies Athena. She's smarter. The first says, yeah, but Poseidon's taller. You keep walking, grinning. They'll be debating that for generations. You reach your home, where Callista's left you a new pot painted with a dolphin and an owl, twining around the curve like old friends. There's no label, no explanation. You place it by the window where the morning light hits it just right. This is your Athens now, rooted storm-kissed, and forever arguing with itself. And strangely, that's what makes it feel alive. The seasons turn again, and with them comes a change not only in weather, but in the very heartbeat of Athens. The olive tree, ancient and stoic, now stands heavy with fruit, a quiet promise of abundance and a reminder of Athena's enduring gift. You find yourself drawn to its gnarled trunk, fingers tracing the rough bark as if seeking some secret etched into its fibers. It's harvest time, and the city hums with a gentle excitement. The air is thick with the scent of crushed olives and fresh earth, mingling with the soft murmur of villagers preparing for the annual festival dedicated to Athena. You watch as baskets overflow with the purple and green fruit, the fruits of wisdom and toil combined. The harvest isn't merely a ritual. It's a celebration of the city's identity, its roots reaching as deep as the stories you've come to love. Yet, even amid the festivities, there's an undercurrent of restlessness. The salt spray still lingers on the wind and Poseidon's presence feels less like an absence and more like a whispered warning. You overhear merchants debating the sea god's moods, trading tales of fishermen who claim to have glimpsed his trident shimmering beneath the waves at dawn. Historians still argue whether these stories are myth or memory, but the conversations themselves weave the divine ever tighter into the fabric of everyday life. As you wander the festival grounds, you encounter an elderly woman sitting quietly by a fountain, her eyes reflecting the flicker of torchlight. She tells you a curious tale that once, long ago, olive tree bore not fruit but something far more peculiar, a single glowing olive said to grant dreams of the future. The story feels like a dream itself, half-remembered and hazy, yet it lingers in your mind like the aftertaste of honey on the tongue. The festival crescendos with a procession winding through the marble streets. Dancers clad in olive leaves and sea-blue robes moving in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Their steps tell stories of battles won, of wisdom earned, and of waters both calm and tempestuous. You join the crowd, swept into the gentle current of song and laughter, feeling the city pulse beneath your feet, a living tapestry of myth and memory. Later, beneath the canopy of stars, you pause once more by the olive tree. The moonlight bathes its leaves in silver, and for a moment, the boundary between past and present, mortal and divine, seems to blur. You wonder what Athena and Poseidon might see if they looked down on this night to gods locked in eternal dialogue. Watching their gifts shape a city that is at once grounded and fluid, wise and wild, in this quiet moonlit reverie, you find a kind of peace. The arguments of gods, the shifting tides of power, they all fold into the gentle rhythm of human life. And as you breathe in the cool night air, you realize that the true story is not just about a contest over an olive tree, but about the endless dance between reason and passion, earth and sea, stability and change. The days grow warmer now, and the streets of Athens pulse with a gentle vibrancy. You stroll through the city, your footsteps soft on the worn stones, noticing the subtle signs of life that speak to the ongoing influence of both Athena and Poseidon. Market stalls brim with ripe fruits and fresh fish, the aroma mingling in the midday sun, like a whispered conversation between earth and sea. You pause near a fountain dedicated to Poseidon. Its waters glistening as children play nearby, their laughter bubbling up like the waves themselves. Nearby olive branches are woven into the hair of passers-by, quiet homage to Athena's wisdom and the enduring fruit of her gift. This blending of symbols feels like a living metaphor for the city itself, where logic and impulse, stability and flux meet and mingle in everyday moments. At a nearby tavern, you find yourself drawn into a conversation with an old storyteller. His voice low and soothing like a ripple across still water. He recounts tales of ancient Athens, where gods walked among mortals, their disputes leaving marks on the land and in the hearts of the people. One story catches your attention, how Poseidon once tried to flood the city to prove his power, only to be thwarted by Athena's clever countermeasures. Historians still argue whether this was a myth or based on some ancient natural disaster, cleverly retold. The ambiguity adds a layer of mystery that pulls you deeper into the narrative. As the afternoon light softens, you wander into an olive grove where the leaves shimmer with a silvery green glow. The scent is calming, almost hypnotic, and you let your fingers brush against the branches, feeling the textured resilience of the tree bark. Nearby, a small plaque hints at the tree's age older than many could imagine, a living relic of the city's founding. This olive tree is not just a plant, but a silent witness to centuries of change, a symbol of patience and wisdom that outlasts even the gods' tempers. You think back to the noisy, restless waves at the harbor, the wet reminders of Poseidon's power. It strikes you how the city seems to hold both forces in delicate balance. Athena's steady hand guiding growth and learning, Poseidon's unpredictable mood shaping its edges and boundaries. This tension creates a quiet harmony, much like the ebb and flow of the sea itself. As dusk falls, you climb a gentle hill overlooking the city. From this vantage point, Athens glows softly under the settling stars, the olive groves stretching like dark veins across the landscape. The sea beyond shimmers with a pale light, a silent partner in the city's endless story. You breathe in the night air, feeling the cool whisper of salt and leaf mingle on your skin, and you realize that this tale of gods and gifts is far from over. It lives on in the rhythm of the city, the pulse of its people, and the rustle of every olive branch in the breeze. By now, the streets of Athens feel like familiar veins beneath your feet. You drift along their contours in a kind of waking dream, lulled by the low murmur of vendors closing up shop and the distant lullaby of waves brushing against stone. Parthenon still stands proudly above the city, its columns catching the soft lavender hue of evening. You gaze up at it and think of Athena not as a statue carved in perfection, but as a force woven into every cracked stone and whispered prayer. Tonight, something feels different. There's a deeper stillness in the air, like the city is collectively exhaling. You turn down a narrow path and find yourself at a small amphitheater, tucked between olive trees, where a handful of Athenians have gathered for a quiet retelling of the contest between Athena and Poseidon. No torches, no fanfare, just voices, echoing softly under the stars. You take a seat on the cool stone and listen as a young girl begins the tale not reading, but remembering. Her voice carries the old rhythms, yet her eyes sparkle with mischief. She adds a twist. What if Athena planted the olive tree not just as a gift, but as a sly rebuttal to Poseidon's tempestuous offer? A joke wrapped in bark and fruit? The audience chuckles gently, and you can't help but smile at the idea that even divine rivalries might be laced with dry humor. A man beside you leans over and tells you about an obscure temple once found deep in the hills, a shrine not to Poseidon or Athena, but to both. Inscriptions there, he claims, describe them not as rivals, but as reluctant siblings, two sides of the same divine coin. Historians still argue whether such shrines were widespread or isolated acts of local piety, but the idea sticks with you, that perhaps the quarrel, like many great stories, was less about division and more about